Before the Fellowship was the greatest story you've never heard. I'm Greg.
I'm Cameron.
Join us as we read and react to the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Last time we continued chapter 22. Húrin encountered Mime in Nargothrond and slew him. He took Naglamir, the necklace of the dwarves, and threw it at Thingol's feet, berating him for the loss of his wife and children. Melian attempted to reason with him, assuring him that Turin, Morwen, and Nienor were welcomed with honor in Doriath. Due to the power of the girdle of Melian, Húrin at last was able to see how Morgoth twisted the truth. He seemingly made peace with Thingol, giving him the Naglamir respectfully, then departed in anguish, never to be seen again. Thingol decided to set the Silmaril in the necklace and grew more and more attached to the great jewel. He gave this task of completing the necklace to the visiting dwarves who began to lust after the Silmaril. When the work was completed, they demanded he give them the necklace, but he refused and spoke down to them. Enraged by his words, they slew him, and as they fled, elves retook Naglamir, now with the Silmaril within it, and returned it to Melian. Two dwarves escaped back to the Blue Mountains and shared their side of the story, and the dwarves of Nogrod sent a great host to Doriath. Today we conclude chapter 22 of Quenta Silmarillion, beginning on page 233 of the second edition. Upon Doriath a heavy change had fallen. Melian sat long in silence beside Thingol the king, and her thought passed back into the starlit years and to their first meeting among the nightingales of Non-Elmoth in ages past. And she knew that her parting from Thingol was the forerunner of a greater parting, and that the doom of Doriath was drawing nigh. For Melian was of the divine race of the Valar, and she was a Maya of great power and wisdom. But for love of Elwë Singolo, she took upon herself the form of the elder children of Ilúvatar. And in that union she became bound by the chain and trammels of the flesh of Arda. In that form she bore to him Lúthien to Nuviel, and in that form she gained a power over the substance of Arda. And by the girdle of Melian was Doriath defended through long ages from the evils without. But now Thingol lay dead, and his spirit had passed to the halls of Mandos. And with his death a change came also upon Melian. Thus it came to pass that her power was withdrawn in that time from the forests of Neldoreth and Region, and Esgalduin. The enchanted river spoke with a different voice, and Doriath lay open to its enemies. Thereafter Melian spoke to none save to Mablung only, bidding him take heed to the Silmaril, and to send word speedily to Beren and Lúthien in Osiriand. And she vanished out of Middle-earth and passed to the land of the Valar beyond the western sea, to muse upon her sorrows in the gardens of Lórien, whence she came, and this tale speaks of her no more. Thus it was that the hosts of the Naugrim crossing over Ardos passed unhindered into the woods of Doriath, and none withstood them, for they were many and fierce. And the captains of the grey elves were cast into doubt and despair, and went hither and thither purposeless. But the dwarves held on their way, and passed over the great bridge, and entered into Menegroth. And there befell a thing most grievous among the sorrowful deeds of the elder days. For there was a battle in the thousand caves, and many elves and dwarves were slain, and it has not been forgotten. But the dwarves were victorious, and the halls of Thingol were ransacked and plundered. There fell Mablung of the heavy hand before the doors of the treasury, wherein lay the Naglamir, and the Silmaril was taken. At that time, Beren and Lúthien yet dwelt in Tol Galen, the Green Isle, in the river Audurant, southernmost of the streams that falling from Ered Lindon flowed down to join with Gelion. And their son Dior Elokil had to wife Nimloth, kinswoman of Celeborn, prince of Doriath, who was wedded to the lady Galadriel. The sons of Dior and Nimloth were Elured and Elurine, and a daughter also was born to them, and she was named Elwing, which is star spray. For she was born on a night of stars, whose light glittered in the spray of the waterfall of Lanthir Lamath beside her father's house. Now word went swiftly among the elves of Osiriand that a great host of dwarves, bearing gear of war, had come down out of the mountains and passed over Gelion at the ford of stones. These tidings came soon to Beren and Lúthien, and in that time also a messenger came to them out of Doriath, telling of what had befallen there. Then Beren arose and left Tol Galen, and summoning to him Dior, his son, they went north to the river Askar, and with them went many of the green elves of Osiriand. Thus it came to pass that when the dwarves of Nógradr, returning from Menegroth with diminished host, came again to Sarn Athrad, they were assailed by unseen enemies. For as they climbed up Gelion's banks burdened with the spoils of Doriath, suddenly all the woods were filled with the sounds of elven horns, and shafts sped upon them from every side. There very many of the dwarves were slain in the first onset, but some, escaping from the ambush, held together and fled eastwards towards the mountains. And as they climbed the long slopes beneath Mount Dolmed, there came forth the shepherds of the trees, and they drove the dwarves into the shadowy woods of Ered Lindon, whence it is said, came never one to climb the high passes that led to their homes. In that battle by Sarn Athrad, Beren fought his last fight, and himself slew the lord of Nógradr, and wrested from him the necklace of the dwarves. But he, dying, laid his curse upon all the treasure. Then Beren gazed in wonder on the selfsame jewel of Fëanor that he had cut from Morgoth's iron crown, now shining, set amid gold and gems by the cunning of the dwarves. And he washed it clean of blood in the waters of the river. And when all was finished, the treasure of Doriath was drowned in the river Askar. And from that time, the river was named anew Lórien, the golden bed. But Beren took the Naglamir and returned to Tol Galen. Little did it ease the grief of Lúthien to learn that the lord of Nógradr was slain, and many dwarves beside. But it is said and sung that Lúthien, wearing that necklace and that immortal jewel, was the vision of the greatest beauty and glory that has ever been outside the realm of Valinor. And for a little while, the land of the dead that live became like a vision of the land of the Valar, and no place has been since so fair, so fruitful, or so filled with light. Now, Dior, Thingol's heir, bade farewell to Beren and Lúthien, and departing from Lanthir Lamath with Nimloth his wife, he came to Menegroth and abode there. And with them went their young sons, Elured and Elurine, and Elwing their daughter. Then the Sindar received them with joy, and they arose from the darkness of their grief for fallen kin and king, and for the departure of Melian. And Dior Elokil set himself to raise anew the glory of the kingdom of Doriath. There came a night of autumn, and when it grew late, one came and smote upon the doors of Menegroth, demanding admittance to the king. He was the lord of the green elves, hastening from Osiriand, and the door wards brought him to where Dior sat alone in his chamber. And there in silence he gave to the king a coffer and took his leave. But in that coffer lay the necklace of the dwarves, wherein was set the Silmaril. And Dior, looking upon it, knew it for a sign that Beren and Lúthien Tinuviel had died indeed, and gone where go the race of men to a fate beyond the world. Long did Dior gaze upon the Silmaril, which his father and mother had brought beyond hope out of the terror of Morgoth, and his grief was great that death had come upon them so soon. But the wise have said that the Silmaril hastened their end, for the flame of the beauty of Lúthien as she wore it was too bright for mortal lands. Then Dior arose, and about his neck he clasped the Naglamir, and now he appeared as the fairest of all the children of the world, of threefold race, of the Edain, of the Eldar, and of the Maiar of the Blessed Realm. But now the rumor ran among the scattered elves of Beleriand that Dior, Thingol's heir, wore the Naglamir, and they said, "A Silmaril of Fëanor burns again in the woods of Doriath." And the oath of the sons of Fëanor was waked again from sleep. For while Lúthien wore the necklace of the dwarves, no elf would dare to assail her. But now, hearing of the renewal of Doriath and of Dior's pride, the seven gathered again from wandering, and they sent to him to claim their own. But Dior returned no answer to the sons of Fëanor, and Celegorm stirred up his brothers to prepare an assault upon Doriath. They came at unawares in the middle of winter, and fought with Dior in the Thousand Caves, and so befell the second slaying of elf by elf. There fell Celegorm by Dior's hand, and there fell Cudefin and dark Cadenthir. But Dior was also slain, and Nimloth his wife, and the cruel servants of Celegorm seized his young sons and left them to starve in the forest. Of this Maedhros indeed repented, and sought for them long in the woods of Doriath, but his search was unavailing, and of the fate of Elured and Elurin no tale tells. Thus Doriath was destroyed, and never rose again. But the sons of Fëanor gained not what they sought, for a remnant of the people fled before them, and with them was Elwing, Dior's daughter, and they escaped, and bearing with them the Silmaril, they came in time to the mouths of the river Sirion by the sea. In summary, with Thingol's death, Melian's power is withdrawn from the forests of Doriath. She sends word to Beren and Lúthien before returning to Valinor, to the gardens of Lórien to mourn. The hosts of dwarves arrive and plunder Menegroth. Mablung is killed, and the Silmaril is taken. Beren and his son Dior take many green elves into Beleriand upon hearing of the dwarves. They come upon the dwarves, and the few who escape are finished off by the shepherds of the trees. Beren kills the Lord of Novgorod and retakes the necklace. Much of the treasure of Doriath is lost in the river Askar, but Beren returns the Naglamir and the Silmaril to his home in Osiriand. Dior goes to Menegroth, hoping to restore the kingdom of Doriath. Later, a green elf comes to Dior and brings him the necklace. He knows this to be a sign that Beren and Lúthien have died. The sons of Fëanor hear that Dior possesses the Silmaril and demand it, but he does not answer. They assault Menegroth, and Celegorm, Cortafin, and Caranthir all fall, but so too does Dior. Dior's sons are forced to flee into the woods, but Elwing, his daughter, and the remnant of his people escape with the Silmaril. Oh, yeah. I liked reading that one. It was kind of
a lot happened in 3 pages.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, let's see here. The first thing is this whole passage about Melian and her power leaving Doriath, which is there's so much there. It's really interesting. I think there's a bunch of little things
her power left because Thingol died, or did she just choose to withdraw?
I think it was almost like the sorrow in her.
Yeah,
and she left too eventually, so the power left with her. But it seems like even before that, there was something that had kind of lifted, just in her grief at Thingol's passing. I think part of it, kind of how I understand this, is she recognized that his being killed marked the end of Doriath. Like that was kind of, it wasn't like other kingdoms that we've seen where the heir will kind of take it up and carry it along. Like there's something about Doriath that it was their kingdom, the two of them, and him dying kind of marked the end of it.
Didn't they have children though?
They did. Lúthien is one of them.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
But it's not like that. It's like, because Dior does he tries to rebuild Menegroth and take up the throne. But there's something kind of, I think it's more like the doom of Doriath. It's not like, in practical terms, they couldn't be done. It's like there's some kind of fate tied to this. And
the doom of the Silmarils, really, right? It comes down to the Silmaril.
Right.
Because
that's kind of the fall.
Isn't that why Thingol died?
Yeah. He began to lust after the Silmaril, and then the dwarves did, and then they killed him. So,
and then Dior is there with the Silmaril after Beren dies. And it says the oath of the sons of Fëanor was waked again from sleep.
Right.
Yeah, we're starting to see. Okay, I see why it's called the Silmarillion. We're reminded again that the fate of the Silmarils like shapes the world.
Right. On 237, we finally get. It's like in a movie when someone says the title. Yeah. Like when Gandalf says, "There can be only one Lord of the Rings." Like, oh, that's what they call it.
It's like when Jack Sparrow. Wait, no, not Jack Sparrow. Jack from Titanic.
Dawson.
Jack Dawson, when he's like, the Titanic. Or I forget. He probably says it at the end.
I think it's when Rose says, they called it the Ship of Dreams, and it was.
Oh, what if they called that movie the Ship of Dreams?
Ship of Dreams. That's what James Cameron, we have notes for you.
I'm interested in reminding people and myself, Thingol and Melian, I mean, they go way back. This is such a tragic moment. So I was looking back, page 56, we hear about Thingol, Elwë. As a reminder, he alone of all the Sindar had seen with his own eyes the trees in the day of their flowering. So he goes back to the actual trees. So he was one of the elves that went to go see the trees,
right?
And then came back.
Yeah, there were four ambassadors of the elves who went. So that was Finwë.
That's right.
Whatever the Vanyar one is called, I always forget his name. But then Elwë, Thingol, and Olwë was his brother, and Olwë ended up staying there.
Gotcha.
He's one of the Teleri. So they were kind of the OGs.
And did he not come back because of Melian?
That's right. Well, the way it worked, as I recall,
it was kind of like
all
Lúthien,
four of them.
Right?
All four of them went to Valinor, by themselves. But then they all returned back to Middle Earth to take their people to
Yeah.
Valinor. And as they were going, the Teleri tarried, and Elwë ended up staying there, captured by the beauty of Melian.
And then Melian chooses to take a human form for him.
An elf form.
Yeah, thank you. That's important.
Yeah.
The substance of an elf for him, and that makes this so much more tragic. I mean, they've been
Right.
together. They're like one of those couples have been married for, 70 years. Just like, man, you guys are like the same. Like you can't live if the other person's not alive,
Right.
And then she can't rule Doriath, so she just goes back to Valinor.
Yeah, I think the part for me that kind of captured what's happening here, it does say that a change came upon her. This is in the top of 234. The girdle of Melian, by the girdle of Melian was Doriath defended through long ages from evils without, but now Thingol lay dead, and his spirit had passed to the halls of Mandos, and with his death, a change came also upon Melian, which is what you just described. Like they've been together forever. And so obviously there's going to be this deep change, but it also seems, it says here that her parting, this is higher up in that same paragraph. She knew that her parting from Thingol was the forerunner of a greater parting, and that the doom of Doriath was drawing nigh. So there's something just deeply connected there that there's no way for her to just continue on the kingdom. It's interesting.
What's also interesting is I'm trying to picture or imagine what Beren is thinking and feeling in on 235 when he's gazing in wonder on the self-same jewel of Fëanor that he had cut from Morgoth's iron crown.
Yeah.
And like he's thinking all the way back to when he made that promise to go find the Silmaril, and like now Thingol's dead, and
Yeah.
like this jewel, like how much woe it has led to.
That's one of those great movie moments too, with either really somber music or maybe no music at all to really capture how poignant that is. That moment of him just wondering about this thing. And I think something that's interesting now that we've seen this, not only did he take the Silmaril from Morgoth's crown, which was a great heroic act, but he might be one of the only people who's successfully taken the Silmaril twice, because now he's taking it from the Lord of the Dwarves too.
I just love that Beren goes to battle again. It's like if Beren's in battle, like this man been through a lot.
He's done.
I wouldn't want to
He's one-handed now. He's one-handed. And he still just slayed all these dwarves.
Camlost. Is that the empty-handed? I forget.
Yeah. One-handed, empty-handed, they're kind of the same.
And then Dior, so that's his son.
Right.
And I looked in the back, and Dior is the grandfather of Elrond.
That's right.
So that's cool.
We're starting to get to this point where, I mean, we're coming up close to the end of the story, and so we'll see more of this. But yeah, Dior, because he's the father of these three elves it mentions, the two sons, Elured and Elúrin, and they don't really feature anymore. It already mentioned that they had to flee into the woods, and Maedhros felt bad about that. He repented of what he did and pursued them to help them, but then they were gone. It was too late. But Elwing, his daughter, is going to continue to feature, so she's an important person to remember.
Yeah, because Elwing is Elrond's mom.
Right. And she's the one that escapes with Silmaril at the end. Elmom.
Whoa, really? Cool. I missed that.
That's the very last sentence.
Yeah.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah, so she's got the Silmaril.
Little baby Elrond in his little shiny diamond diapers is getting told this story about mommy.
No wonder Rivendell's so nice. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
Silver diaper on his bottom.
Yeah, that's right.
And then
Okay.
we get mention of
Okay.
Celegorm again.
Right. A
Um,
bunch of these sons.
I had to look up again. I was like, who is this again? And then it was those guys who captured Lúthien.
So
Um,
Codorfin and Cardanthir are the ones that captured Lúthien.
oh, okay.
And Celegorm is one of the other sons of Fëanor. So three of them are gone, just like
One of them
that.
was the Master of Huan too, the Huan the Hound.
Right, right, right.
So we remember them way back when, the Beren and Lúthien story.
Right.
And we don't hear from them until they hear about the Silmaril. It's like time to go on a trip.
Yeah. Guys, pack the car. We're going. One thing that I thought was pretty interesting. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this. The way it talks about Melian throughout a lot of the story, she doesn't feature that much, but because she's Maya and because she's seen the light of the trees, she's like this pinnacle of beauty in Middle Earth. Like there's no one even comes close to comparing to her. And I think even the way that it said it earlier in the book, I think it said something like the light of the trees shone in the hair of Galadriel, but in Melian it like shone in her face. And there was just immense beauty. So there is something kind of sad about her leaving Middle Earth. Like this pinnacle of beauty is leaving Middle Earth for good. But then Lúthien inherits, in a sense, or the Silmaril comes to her, and it does say that when she began to wear the Silmaril, her beauty was too bright for mortal lands. Isn't that fascinating? There's it says somewhere else too, where when she first takes up the Silmarils and wears them, her beauty kind of surpassed everything else. Here it is. This is the bottom of 235. It is said and sung that Lúthien wearing that necklace and that immortal Jew was the vision of the greatest beauty and glory that has ever been outside the realm of Valinor.
Okay, I don't know if you meant to do this, but it sounded like you said immortal Jew.
Oh,
Did you say jewel?
I might have just mumbled, but I meant to say jewel.
He meant immortal jewel.
Immortal jewel. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of these moments where Tolkien's like, this person is the most beautiful ever. It's like, wait a second, have you said that before?
Yeah, exactly.
But then you're like, wait, vision of greatest beauty there's ever been outside the realm of Valinor. Okay. That has ever been. So Tolkien is kind of ranking the beauties here. So
yeah, that's true.
seems like we got Lúthien at the top, outside Valinor, then Melian maybe.
Yeah.
Who's number 3?
Do you remember?
Nimrod.
We had a conversation way back. I think it was in regard to Melian, where you talked about being in the springtime of your beauty or the summertime.
Oh yeah.
Or the dawn of your beauty or the noon.
The brunch of your beauty.
The brunch of your beauty, Lúthien Tinuviel. But okay, and this is something that's super fascinating too. This is the middle of 236, where it says that the wise have said that the Silmaril hastened Beren and Lúthien's end. For the flame of the beauty of Lúthien as she wore it was too bright for the mortal lands. So it's kind of like that idea.
It
like
accelerates like her beauty.
Just
flame of the beauty. Wow.
It's like the glory of her goodness and her days is compacted into like a shorter time and just like burns super brightly.
Spends it. That's so interesting. The Silmaril brings out beauty.
So I wish Dan were here so he could just tell him how wrong he is about the Silmarils. Because I mean,
it leads to a lot of woe, but if you have a pure heart, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.
Yeah.
it accentuates what the beauty that's there. Like you can't with the ring, you can't use it for good ends. So yeah, that's beautiful. And it is interesting that it shortens her life because of that.
Yeah. Okay, I have two last little things. I don't know if you might have more too, but the Ents appear in this, the shepherds of the trees.
Right.
They go off and kill all the dwarves. So they kind of have an ancient enmity between them, right? Because the dwarves hew the trees with their axes, and the Ents.
Good point.
I
Yeah,
don't know if
when
that
did
is the case now, but this is only like the second time it's mentioned the Ents. But actually, this goes way back to when Aule first created them. Do you remember this? When Aule first created the dwarves, Yavanna was really mad because she wasn't
Oh yeah.
included, and that was part of why the Ents
That
exist.
was why or I do remember that she wasn't a part of the conversation, which meant that the dwarves didn't have
A
the
love for
compassion,
nature, or
a
like
love for nature.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
But
Yeah,
the
there was something
Ents,
about that, and then Yavanna, I think she makes these shepherds of the woods so that the trees can defend themselves, since the dwarves don't have any compassion for them, and the dwarves got what they deserved, I guess.
where did you see the Ents mentioned?
In the one we just read,
Yeah.
230, right in the middle, 235, the end of that paragraph in the middle. So it's talking about the dwarves as they climb the long slopes beneath Mount Dolmed. They're retreating back to the mountains. There came forth the shepherds of the trees, and they drove the
Gotcha.
dwarves into the shadowy woods of
Are they even
Erethdom.
called Ents?
I don't know. Are they?
Yeah, because I don't see Ent in the index actually.
Oh, is shepherds of
But
the
I do
trees?
see shepherds of the trees. And then it says two spots they're mentioned. 235, which we just read, and 46.
46. Okay, I've got that open right now. If we want to jump to that. Um, let's see.
It's towards the bottom
Oh,
where
here
it
we go.
mentions
Here we go.
shepherds of the
Yeah.
trees.
This is Manwe and Yavanna and Aule talking. Manwe says, "Nay, only the trees of Aule will be tall enough. In the mountains the eagles shall house and hear the voices of those who call upon us. But in the forests shall walk the shepherds of the trees." I think it is sort of like this um, concession to Yavanna. Like, okay, well, I'll let these things
Hmm.
exist too, so the trees can defend themselves.
Hmm.
Shepherds of the trees. Someone in Discord tell us what we've got mistaken about that part, but very interesting. And then my last thing here, you have this whole thing about Dior trying to rebuild Menegroth, and
Menegroth.
yeah,
Trying to throw your name in there.
he does his best, and then the Sons of Fëanor come, and this is like you said earlier. It's this, the doom, the oath of Fëanor is waked again. Is that what it says? The oath of the Sons of Fëanor was waked again, and they go after it, and most of them die. But the part of what's interesting here, this is only the second time apparently. I mean, there's been some, like, the Sons of Fëanor took Lúthien, they captured her, and they sent Beren and Finrod Felagund to die. But it says this is only the second time where there was slain of elf by elf. And it's the first time was the kinslaying when the Sons of Fëanor,
Wow.
the Noldor, fought the Teleri for the boats. But this is only the second time, and it's a lot of these main characters just killing each other, all tied to the Silmaril.
Yeah, maybe more fundamentally tied to the Oath of Fëanor,
Right.
which brought upon them the doom of Mondos.
Yeah.
Just an absolute decision they made, turning from Valinor, bringing the doom of Mondos upon them.
Yeah. I remember a while back I was thinking, I mean, especially the first time I read this book, like, I wonder if things are going to get better, but they pretty much just keep getting worse all the way through to the end. I've been thinking about Turin and his end. And I think, and I've said this before, but I think that's part of what's so sad about it is there wasn't really a moment of redemption at the end. And we see that with some of these characters too. Like the Sons of Fëanor are just bested by the darkness of this oath they've taken. Maedhros, again, he's like the only one who's kind of, he does have some, he's willing to repent. The other ones are so hot-headed and like, so I think they're kind of, it's like the sunken cost fallacy. Like they know they're all in. They can't go back anymore. They've like done terrible things in the name of this oath and there's no going back. But Maedhros, because he was saved by Fingon early on and had that reconciling, he seems to be the quickest to try to repent of the evil he does and see the error of his ways and try to make something good of this whole situation. But he's still tied to the oath himself too.
Would you consider the Silmarillion as a tragedy ultimately then?
We'll probably have to see how it ends. I think because there's some good things, and I think I don't want to jump too far ahead, but
sure,
it is
I guess
certainly
we'll find out.
filled with all kinds of tragedy. But
just read chapter 22 and coming on chapter 23.
Let me ask this question in anticipation of these last couple chapters. What fate of the Silmarils could possibly be good?
Well, I thought when Beren drowned the other jewels, that he could have drowned the Silmaril. Ultimately.
So you're saying like kind of removing that temptation from.
Well, I don't even like that ending. I think the only proper ending is to bring them back to Valinor as a gift, as like especially if the Sons of Fëanor brought them back.
Yeah.
I don't think they can find Valinor anymore. But like imagine if they had a deal with Melian or something. It's like they gave him to Melian. Yeah, take this back as a gift to whoever.
Right.
Whoever made the trees.
That would be a big redemption, yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see what becomes of them. All right. If you enjoyed what you heard, I closed my script. If you like what you heard, rate us 3 Silmarils out of 3.
Yeah, that's correct.
Follow us everywhere at Before the Fellowship.
Literally everywhere.
I think it's just Instagram. No, it's not even that. It's just x.com. That's formerly Twitter. And that's it. Send any emails Discord. You have. And Discord. And then, send any emails you have to beforethefellowship@gmail.com and join the discussion on Discord. Links are in the description. Join us next time as we read the greatest story you've never heard, The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien.